Coming up on the next episode of Zuzu All Grown Up.
You are not wanted. These are the words that the school principal told Zully Alvarado at elementary school. She had just immigrated to the U.S. from Ecuador. It wasn't just how she dressed or her broken English that caused these harsh words, but also her disability. Zully has since overcome all of that and went on to be an advisor in the Chicago mayor's office and is the founder of the organization Causes for Change International. Zully JF Alvarado is our guest today.
Look, Daddy, teacher says every time a bell rings, an angel gets his wings.
You're now listening to Zuzu All Grown Up.
She's been featured in more than 20 films from the early days of film and television.
He is a psychotherapist and her loving husband.
Together, they are on a mission to brighten your day and your life.
It's a time to smile, a time to laugh, a time to expect more.
It's time to get inspired with your hosts, Karolyn Grimes and Dr. Brunell.
It's time to meet Zuzu, all grown up.
Do you believe that life is wonderful in principle, but for some reason just isn't so consistently in practice? Every life will have its ups and downs. But have you ever thought that if there were only more people around you encouraging, uplifting, and even inspiring you, then life would be more fulfilling? If only people like George and Mary Bailey were in your inner circle, then life could truly be wonderful all the time? If so, we've got good news for you, because you can find such people on this podcast and at zuzunetwork.com. This podcast is the vision of Karolyn Grimes, Zuzu, and Dr. Brunell, illustrating how the timeless message of It's a Wonderful Life can be and is applied to our modern lives and situations. Indeed, when you take that message to heart, your life will become immeasurably more wonderful. Visit us at zuzunetwork.com and listen to this podcast series to learn more about how. Now sit back, relax, and get ready to enjoy another episode of Zuzu, All Grown Up.
An immigrant to America from Ecuador, Zully Alvarado, did not speak English the same way the people around her did when she first came to this country. She struggled to fit in, but boy, she's sure come a long way since then. Hired by Chicago's first African-American mayor, Zully was integral to making the city's schools accessible to the disabled. It's just one of many things she's done to help disabled and marginalized communities in Chicago and beyond. Well, I think this is going to be a very interesting interview, and we are very interested to find out about causes for change.
Get ready for miracles. Get ready for Zuzu. All grown up.
About to join Karolyn and Chris in the studio is Zully Alvarado. It looks like they are about to exchange greetings right now.
Oh, you look wonderful.
Oh, thank you.
Very much younger than I thought you were going to look.
Oh, they're very kind of you.
Today's interview is in front of a live virtual audience, and I see Chris already about to ask the first question. Let's listen in.
Oh, you look wonderful.
Oh, thank you.
Very much younger than I thought you were going to look.
Oh, they're very kind of you. Yeah, I just celebrated my birthday, so this is a great gift.
I have to say, I was really deeply moved in reading your biography and your story, and the story of the impact that you've made on at least 3 people's lives. And we'd love to hear more about that. Just a little disclosure here. I work every day as a clinical psychologist, and I work a lot with very difficult stories. When I read your stories, I have to say I was in near tears almost. I see myself as kind of jaded a little bit, but that your story really hit me, and I'm so excited to finally get to hear what your story is. Where does it all start?
Yeah. Thank you. Well, it all started, I guess, from my own story. And I think that happens to a lot of us, that from our personal experiences, seeing what, for me, it was seeing what my parents went through when I acquired a disability as a baby. And from that experience, seeing their pain and their struggles, I would say. And then as years went by, and I'll just make it, I guess, short. I don't know to what extent I should go into it, but being from a village, I think, and then you have been brought to the US for medical care. And then once I was able to learn to walk myself, I acquired polio. And that was one of the things that I acquired polio as a child, leaving me paralyzed from the neck down. And then for years not being able to manage, and my parents not having the resources, or even my country, I would say, not having the resources to provide for me. And everywhere they would take me was more like, there's nothing we can do, just take her home to die. And parents being parents, whatever hope, whatever whoever shows up. And so in this case, a missionary priest showed up in my village, and he promised to bring me to the US for medical care. And so that's where it all began. And I was so fortunate to have a family here in the US, an American family who raised me, who provided for me. And then as time went on, I just, and myself, been learning to walk and being treated with having the right type of therapies and treatments. And then it's proceeded the education. It was the question comes now, what can I do for others? And so that's where really it all began. So I was given another chance at life, and to reconnect with my biological family, who, as a teenager, I was so angry. It's like teenagers go. You become angry because you don't know your roots. You don't know for me, I was lost my language. I lost my culture. I lost what I thought, everything. And then being so appreciative that such a young couple being so strong to give their child to strangers, to turn it over for the hope of life. And so that's what as years went on, that's what I learned. And so I reconnected. I started my nonprofit called Causes for Change International, and with the hopes that I would go back and meet my biological parents. And the aim was really to introduce what I would say friends from the North to my roots, and then from there to create some kind of cultural exchange kind of thing. And as I started, the first year with Causes was to travel to see where the need was, mostly in my country, as once I met my parents. And then I found that the same village where I was found, or by this missionary priest, that's the same, the needs were exactly the same. Nothing had changed from what I recalled. And so that's where it all began. So it's a complete circle, I would say. So the children there needed a lot of care, the lack of nutrition, so many malnourished children, many children with disabilities, the same, the big bellies, the whole works, the lack of education. And so I felt that that's where my work, I had to go back and start from there. So,
wow.
So
That's really something. What was your experience when you first saw your mother?
So the first time it was, I called prior to that because I was doing some personal growth. And so I called, and the first thing she said, in hearing her voice, was she said, apologized. She apologized to me, and she said, when you left, every evening I would go down, because they had lived in a house of stilts. Then she would go down and look up into the heavens, and be filled with tears. And she had my little dress, I guess, and she said she would put it to her nose and just smell it, and just hold it to her heart. And even this day, she just recently, I called her up again, and she says that she wished she finally got rid of the dress after years. And that she says she wishes that she would held on to it because she wanted me to see it, to believe her. But that was her experience. And so I said, there's nothing to apologize. I've had a great life. I have a wonderful life. I've been so fortunate to live. I'm so fortunate to have life, because everyone else had given up on me. It's like they saw that I would not live. They said at that time it was beyond my teen years not to expect that, because of the lack of nourishment, and being paralyzed and not having the right kind of treatment. But for me, it was more like, so courageous, such strength, but possible to find the right words to see what it takes, for a young couple, because they were young at the time, to see as my child take her, even not knowing when they would see me, if they would ever see me again. And so now it's like reconnecting. So I feel the same thing with other children now. That's children that I have come across that we've in the villages, in the towns, not only in Ecuador, but different places that I've traveled and in the Americas. It's just more, again, this that I really stopped counting when I said, we've helped over 20,000 children. So when we talk about the particular children that I had selected for this, it's just more the very basic kind of things. It's like having a child that everyone, again, like have given up, I would say, in them. And this particular child that came to mind for me was that the teachers, everybody had given up in the classroom. And so I just sort of set them aside and being bullied. And then all of a sudden, what a simple question that it takes, how, it's more like, what does the child do? It's just the child squinting the eyes. What, can you see here? Has he been taken to the doctor? No, there's no money. It's like.
We'll join Karolyn and Chris in just a moment with more of Zuzu All Grown Up.
First, an important message.
Her words weren't written under peaceful shade, but under fear for her life.
I don't think of all the misery, but of the beauty that still remains.
The words of Anne Frank continue to fill us with hope. Hope. Pass it on. From passiton.com.
Start your morning right with premium coffee roasts available at zuzunetwork.com and drink them in your Zuzu All Grown Up coffee mug. Also perfect for tea and hot chocolate. Join Zuzu's network today at zuzunetwork.com/join.
Karolyn is creating an international network of aspiring angels, everyday people who believe that they can help make the world a better place by making life better for even just one other person.
Let us know you want to earn your wings at zuzunetwork.com/join, and Karolyn and Chris will send you inspirational material to support you in your journey.
We're back with more Zuzu All Grown Up.
Let's do the very basic things, being able to, how can we help this child? So by moving the child in the front of the classroom, we find that the child can't see. So that's like, let's figure out how can we solve that school that has no money. It's like here in the States, we change phones all the time. It's like maybe a telephone. That with the bigger print, would that help? Could with the teacher be open to that? Maybe it's not even the teacher's choice now. It's just up to us to show that something so small like this, the telephone, that we discard or give up or turn in for whatever, that we can just collect and so I had an old phone that I had just switched my Apple phone and so sent it down as a donation and just like, here, let's test it out. And sure enough, this child was just so happy. It really changed this child's life. And just recently I followed up again on the child, and the child is thriving. He's doing well. He's learning to read, and he's using the same telephone. Unfortunately, the child cannot take the phone home because, the possibility of being stolen and all of that. So it's only while the child is in the classroom that the child is able to use this telephone. But there are other instruments that I think that in time that we can help, just teaching, how can we just write bigger or instructing others to how to accommodate a child. So for me, the child is particularly it doesn't matter whether the child is labeled disabled or not. It's just any child who may have particularly been outcasted for some reason or another, height or weight or whatever. That's just, but this child for me, it was more like he would have lost his future. He would have had no future there, because everyone had already, such a young life, had already pretty much given up on him.
So difficult to believe that can still happen.
Yes, so, it does.
Can you tell me about this child that you wanted to share with us? Did he have issues? Did you see him? Did you find him?
No, I did not. Usually now that it's from the years that causes has been an existence now 27 to this year's 27th year, that now they're volunteers, people that know of my work or of my interest in children, my love for children, and just people in general, families, and not having families suffer, that they give me a call or let me know, or they write me, that they send me emails or through WhatsApp. So in this particular child, the one that we just talked about, needing the phone, and a couple of others, it's more volunteers now that they have an eye that in different parts of different villages. And so they contacted me that way and let me know. So, Zully, we have this child. What do you think? So, well, then I start with a question, go back and go check on this, go check on that. In this case, it's like, okay, let's figure this out. They need a phone. How can we get a phone? Is anyone traveling from there to here? Can we mail it here? So those are the kind of things that how we cover.
So what are the primary challenges of a lot of the children besides what you mentioned here?
I think a lot, in many instances, starts with nutrition. The other is, I think, in many instances, the parent not knowing what to do, especially if it's a child with whether in the home still, like if you recall in the U.S., and I think in many countries still, that the child is more for the farming, or they don't push education that much. But I still find that a lot is the nutrition. Another child that I had comes to mind is, again, she suffered tremendously with the lack of nutrition. And here she was, this little girl, she was 6 when, again, another volunteer contacted me about her. She was born with a cleft lip and a cleft palate. Again, those are severe cases, case like that. And so she was seen as a very monstrous, very deformed, her face. And so I can't imagine the mother, how can the mother, no matter how much love, still, there's some kind of, different feelings than you would want the mother to have for a child. And so this child was called to my attention. And the first thing was, okay, let's get some nutrition, some supplements, some holistic, let's see who would donate enough quantity to get this child to gain the weight necessary, because we had the child evaluated and the child was too lightweight in order to have surgery. And of course, once we got, I think, 3 months supplies to get her nourished, and then just enough weight to get her for surgery. So we were able to get her cleft lip because she had bilabial. So whole just open up into her lips. So we were able to arrange for her to get evaluated and be just enough for, like I said, to withstand the surgery, to close that up. And so another organization from Brazil who were traveling physicians, we arranged for her to have the surgery, and she turned out beautiful, just so beautiful with the close. So the next thing was, how can we get the closed lip, closed palate, because she was then able to talk, she was no food intake. So again, it's the continuance trying to gain weight. How can we feed? How can we put, and just the nourishment in the liquid form. So those are the kind of instances. And there's a lot in the particular area of children with many deformations because of they still spray bananas, the banana plant. So anytime we eat a banana, it's like how much spraying does this go to be able to export? Because here, these children, this poison goes into the water system, and children who live nearby get women who are pregnant, get this into their system, and this is what the results we have: children being born with so many deformities. And so it's more the lack of education, the lack of awareness to some extent, where people, the leadership to raise the voices, to say no more, or let's find different ways. How can we educate the farmer? How can we educate the parents? How can protect the children or the women who are pregnant? So in this case, that's what happened. And the brother, the same thing of this little girl, turned out with severe some mental disabilities. Again, we were being able to provide for him as well some nourishment to try to get him to his intellectual functionings, to be a little bit more, to improve a bit. And so he has done so. So at least we were able to get him to a level that at least he could read and write in that school. And with the little girl, unfortunately, she's still struggling. We've made arrangements for surgery, but she's never, the weight is not there at a level that she could withstand the surgery. So I don't know. At least for now, I think we're happy that she can see herself as a beautiful little girl, and whatever lifespan that she has, that we did good for her and we did good for the family.
It's wonderful. My goodness. So, Causes for Change. This is your
Yes.
organization, right?
Yes, this is my organization. Causes for Change International. This
You've been doing it
causes just every cause. Pardon?
It's been over 20 years. How long have you been?
27. Say the first year that when I went back to Ecuador to meet my family, and it was the beginning, the first travel mission to connect and being able to see what we could do. Mhm.
How have the lives of these children impacted your life?
Wow. A great question. I'm like, wow.
I'm sorry.
The first thing was that when I was asked that question, do you have any children? Do you have any children? And I said, no, but I have thousands of children.
There you go. Yeah.
I have thousands of children, that depend on me, that count on me. And if I can help one, and I felt a lot more, as we said earlier.
Are you like one of those mothers that love all of your children the same, or do you have favorites?
Oh gosh. Well, like for example, like these that I have certain ones that stick with me, and it's like, what else can I do for them, and to see such improvement, to see such progress, and that they move forward. Those are the ones that how severe they were, and here now there's hope for them and hope for their families, and yeah, that's the key.
So in these 27 years, have any of these children continued along with your organization? I mean, have they continued in any capacity, like volunteering or?
I would say one that we've made tremendous impact, that he's just, I would say he was a children in need, but he was a young man, he was a young boy at the time that wasn't sure which direction he was going to go. And so he sought me out in in my volunteer missions, and he wanted to continue on with his education. We encouraged him to do so. He went on to college, finished his college education, and then he encouraged him to continue. He saw the work that we were doing, that decided to specialize in disability. So I had him come here to the U.S. to be mentored and spend time with me to learn about this country, about disability and accessibility, so he could go back and do the same kind of work there in Ecuador. So he's done that. So he was here, I think, not this past winter, the winter before. We spent 3 more months really learning English. So, and being coached and mentored, I guess, mindset. It's all about mindset. And so he's now a director in the school. So disability for him, anytime he sees a child, he's like right there on top advocating. And I've encouraged him about how we can change policies in the country, change the laws in the country, so the attitudes of people regarding disability. So he's right on top of it. So I would say there's one individual. Another individual that also has volunteered in the beginning the same way. She's a young woman that changing anytime there's some events or changing the city about the curb cuts or transportation. She's a big advocate in transportation in the country. There are people now that we constantly in different areas, and those are the ones that now serve as volunteers, or they keep an eye on children in need or families in need, or what the country, how it can change this rule, this law. How can we do some more Zoom training? Can we do some of that? So they're beginning knowing how the challenges for travel now, especially during COVID. How can we get some clinics going? Someone just called me recently. They say, Zully, we have a piece of land. Can we build a clinic like we did? Because we've built about 5 dental clinics, more community centers in the previous years. And so he says, can we do something like that? I was like, oh, I don't know. I'm having the energy or the thought. Let's see what we can do. So I'm no longer like I was 27 years ago. So yeah, so it's great, but that gives me the energy too. And this, how can we figure it out? So as a matter of fact, that there's some work being done here local, not here in the U.S. as well. So we're beginning to look at what can we do. Like in Gary, Indiana, I did some work in Gary, Indiana, but that's more in the waterways and outdoor activities. How can we change again, it's about attitudes or or including people of all abilities in doing different kinds of things like kayaking, just a very basic, hey, quadriplegic can go kayaking if we have the right kind of equipment. The people who are wheelchair users can go to the beach if we have the right type of equipment. Let's not leave anyone out. We can all experience the same if the tools or the equipment is available. So we've done some work like that here as well.
Well, it seems as though that there's only so much one person can do,
Yes.
and there's so many needs that are out there. And I'm thinking about back to this, you're talking about how the chemicals, for instance, with bananas has, of such a profound effect on genetics, and birth defects, and that industry is so big, it's so powerful that it'd be very difficult to push against that. So it's almost like, how can we get clean water, to families? That's a very, or how that's a very complicated situation.
Yes, it is, especially when it makes it hard when there's no running water, even still, again, to this day, in many of these villages, when the women still have to go and wash their clothing in the river in the same where these chemicals are flowing through. And then they take the same water to go and cook. So that's why, like so many, there was one year in the beginning that, again, I went to another area, the coastal, when I saw some children again being deformed with the genitals being deformed. And it was just an awful experience for me. I said, I can't, that's like you say, how can you handle the impact? For me, I said, this is too much. We have to narrow this down. And we have to look at what areas, what we can really cover and what we are capable of, considering the financial resources. Or I don't live in this country. I've done, even if I lived in this country, I'm afraid I end up in jail. I went to the prisons. Oh God, that's another experience. I want to visit the prisons there. Oh gosh, talk about one of my volunteers having an experience with transportation. It's like, oh no, one volunteer down there, so I had to go down and visit them in prison. And so, because their transportation, everybody gets thrown in jail. It doesn't matter whether you're innocent or guilty. And advocating on her behalf, it was just crazy. But that's what happens as well. Yeah.
Can people help you with your funding, or how do you manage to support all this care that you give these folks?
So for the most years, either it's been through the volunteers or different missions. When we go down, I just go and ask for donations, like the supplements, and then figure out how to cover it. Typically, it's been my work. I've always worked. I have a job to be, not a job, but as a consultant here or there to be able to support. So that's how pretty much I've covered a lot of the expenses. I see, because to write grants and stuff, to be told no in many instances, I don't like that. So it's, again, time is precious. And so it's mostly been like that, kinds individuals who've donated, then some friends who from time to time send in a check, and I guess they know what I'm doing. And so that's pretty much how I've done the work.
And it's causes for change.
Yes, causes for change. Yes.
So there was a child who was burned. Can you tell us about that?
Oh, yes, that is happened again. A child he was young, I would say probably about 8 years of age or so, when I got the call on a Saturday morning. It's like, what am I going to do on a Saturday morning where the child is burnt? Here's the phone call. I said, I've never dealt with any burns. Where do you begin? And then here's more than 70% of the child's body being burnt. He had been electrocuted. I guess he was playing ball, and the ball had gone over, I guess, some cables. And so the child went, by, and so he was totally, I guess his body just couldn't be touched or seen. So I guess too much the burns were so severe. So what he had done, taken to the hospital, but they couldn't do anything at the hospital. So that's where I got the call. And so immediately I ended up contacting friends. The nurse, what do you do at a hospital? You work at a hospital. Tell me, what do they know? So that was the beginning. It's like, where do it get? That was even, I think, before we had so much internet that we could do the research, but it's more phone call. Then I think I contacted any resource that I could. And finally, I learned that New Jersey is a big place, sort of like the capital of for the transplant, skin transplant, all of that. It's something I didn't know. So I started calling companies, corporations, can you donate? Can you give? So that's how it just all started. And of course, I contacted the hospital where this child was. And so typically, what is it that you need? Can I speak to the doctor? So I've spoken to the doctor. So it's anyone in it, give me more information on this child, what we can do. But by the end, by come Wednesday, we had gotten anything and everything that the child needed. And now this time more than what we needed, because just one company alone donated the entire amount of the skin grafting that he would need. I didn't even know that sometimes it took chicken or fish skin to deal with burns. And then I learned as a cadaver skins, all kinds of skins. It's like, wow, this is a total education. Talk about what a child teaches me. Here's this about burns. And so now the next thing is, how do we get this transported? Get it through customs. Customs had never heard of this. In this particular times, like how I need special permission to let me talk to the colonel of customs. I need to call who, what, and so I'll get into that phone call. I need permission. So the next thing that step is getting the hospital. So that was all this thing that one has to do. So finally we got entry into the permission into the country to send this directly to the hospital. And the child arrived, got his first transplant. So he was so happy. This child was so happy. He says that his dream was that with his angel, that he labeled me, it was his angel suddenly, and that he dreamt about dancing with me in his village, and he would show me off, that being his angel, that I was able to get this for him. But what happened was just surgery, too many surgeries in young life. He couldn't handle it anymore. So he did pass after several days. I'm not sure how many days he lasted, but his family was so grateful. But what happened was that his mission, he fulfilled his mission, I would say, because there were so many children in the burn unit that everything that we got, those children were able to be saved.
Mm.
So other children that had been waiting there for weeks and months because no one was there to support them. And so what this child, the skin, what we collected for him was able to be available for the others. So then what we did after that, of course, the next mission, I made sure that we got enough medical supplies and all that for the hospital for this burns unit, and make sure that we thank this doctor for treating these children and provide for these children. So about this little boy, he was an angel for sure that saved all the lives of these other children. And he fulfilled his mission. That's how I said. Mm. And his parents still, from time to time, sent me a note thanking me for what I did for their child. Mm. So that's the stories. It's like just each one is so different. It's like each case. Yeah.
And they touch your heart so deeply.
Yes, they do. They do. And just I can never forget what I went through, because I was determined to find a solution. And, a child was not going to go that easily in my watch kind of thing. So no, I'm not going to give up on a child like that. If there's hope somewhere, someone please come and help, and we were so fortunate because I learned so much from the experience, about what. Like I said, I had no idea. All this research that's being done for skin grafts and different skin animals, pork, this pig skin being used for burns. And so, but certain skins are not compatible. So we had to find different under what the doctors wanted and needed.
Even if we were if let's say you're doing this in the United States, it would be difficult to do. But what you're doing is cross borders in countries where there's probably a lot of red tape and all sorts of bureaucracy. How do you do that? I mean, time and time again, does it get any easier, or is it?
I would say it gets easier. I would just say that certain times certain areas I've had to become hard because I just no, which one takes precedence? Which one am I going to invest my time more so? And sometimes I've had to be hard on parents too. That's the other thing. Just like sometimes I've had to treat a parent like a child. No, don't do this, do that, because sometimes that's where that's where sometimes the breakdown is as well. Don't let your child go, let your child walk, don't baby your child. There's like There's one that I was just so angry that the child was being used for, it's a child, again, child that was blind, who was being used, in this case, by the grandparent as a victim. And I saw so much potential in this child, and that because the community was giving money, was giving food, was giving all kinds of stuff as a way to feel sorry for. And I said no. And finally I said to one of the volunteers, tell the media, tell them not to interview this person anymore, not to send it, because this child is brilliant. He still has the mental faculties to be able to do a lot. We don't have to depend just on the eyesight when we can strengthen other sensories and other modalities that he has that can function. So we find into those kind of situations. So it doesn't get easy whether it's a child or whether it's an adult or a family member. It's more like gotta be firm at certain times. And even with a child, another child that had been playing and ended up being paralyzed because of lack of oxygen. And so it's like quickly, again, another where the teachers had given up. And I'm saying like, no, we got to stop this. It's like, we can save this child. We can save still, this accident was recently. So we can support it and send again enough supplements, enough brain, there's a brain supplement that we used that the child now is walking, and he didn't want to use a wheelchair. He didn't want to use in here. The psychologist had visited him at home, and he said, no, he's a vegetable. He's a vegetable. No. It's like, I was screaming and yelling. I said, no. It's like, no, this child still is there. This child is there, So I said, this accident was recent. It's not like it happened years ago. This child's still there. So let's help him. And sure enough, we didn't give up. So this is like sometimes control my emotions and just wherever it comes from, some higher power. The higher power is when they're telling me, be firm. No, be easy. No, control your voice.
For a lot of people, give up. You don't see the same barrier. You push on. You see something inside there, in there that some potential. Like, for instance, that young Black child that was blind, you saw the child as being brilliant, and you wanted to bring that out. And so there's also the handicap of being a victim. And so by seeing oneself as a victim, one behaves like a victim. And it's very difficult to have a good quality of life in that mindset. So that's a big part of this as well.
Yes, we can all fall into victims. We want sometimes, even myself as a child growing up, family here in the U.S., I remember once when I fell, she has long legs and she kept walking. It's like, you get up. It's like, and here my tears were running and I had to get up. I had to get up alone, figure it out. I could get up. Yeah, she left me and that's, so I took my steps, but so she refused. Yeah, I can imagine it hurt her too, just like it hurt my mother, but can't allow a child to be a victim. Just learn to walk, learn to crawl, learn to be independent.
Right. In the few minutes that we have, I would like to ask you, what are some of the most difficult hurdles that you've had in implementing your mission to help other children, to help these children?
One of the great things about this country, people are so generous, very giving. And I think that the beginning, we were able to take a lot of donations. And now with the cost of airlines, the cost of travel has been, the limit number of luggage. The airlines don't care whether it's a donation or not. You just allowed just X, and we're no longer able to take the supplies needed. That's one thing. So the need is great. The cost of mailing, the cost of shipment. In the past, I donated, like I was able to send a container here and there, loaded with the old wheelchairs, crutches, canes. I can no longer that. So the cost is prohibited at times for us to be able to send any kind of help or donation. So that's the major hurdle for me at this time. So it's now looking for ways, how can we use Zoom, or how can teach the local people? Yes, they're, in the one of the last missions I remember is teaching the local people. It's just like, hey, we don't need a therapeutic bed. We can just cut a banana leaf, and we can use a banana leaf and lay the child down to do therapy. We don't need anything fancy. So those kind of things, getting those elastic stretchers kind of thing and putting it around the tree for the child to do therapy instead of, something like we're accustomed here to lift ourselves up. So using nature to be able to do therapy. So those are the kind of trainings or teachings that we can show so that because we don't have the funding. So being creative, how can we use our creativity?
Zuzu, Zully, and Dr. Chris, we're going to cut away now for some important but brief messages, and we'll be back in just about 2 minutes. Can't wait to hear the rest of your talk.
To find out more about the organization featured in today's episode or a previous episode, and to learn more about how you can help, go to zuzunetwork.com/beanangel.
Not completing high school is more of a social thing than it was an academic thing. Even though all these years have passed, I still had that longing to have my diploma.
At age 30, Carissa finished her high school diploma.
If you're even considering getting your high school diploma, you can do it.
No one gets a diploma alone. If you're thinking of finishing your high school diploma, you have help. Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org. That's finishyourdiploma.org. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
Zuzu's book club features recommendations from Zuzu herself on books she loves and thinks you will love also. All of the books that the club reads, fiction and nonfiction, are inspirational and uplifting. Folks, this is a life-enhancing club to be part of. You can sign up for free at zuzunetwork.com/book club. That's zuzunetwork.com/book club.
This is Zuzu, all grown up.
But it's mostly the funding and the lack. I would say in many instances, it's more the supplies that we can't get. Even if we were able to get a wheelchair here, I get donations, it's the shipping, I can't get it down there. And then sometimes it's ended up like, how severe is the child? Making someone travel to pick it up and pretend. I had someone pretend that they were actually using the wheelchair so we can get the wheelchair down. And I had to spend a week teaching them how to use the wheelchair so they would not falter. So I had to do that. So it's like, this is how you use your wheelchair. If you go through the airport, this is how you use the chair. It's like, this is how you, so I've had to do that. Watch how I use my chair. How do you go and, to move back and so you can get up the curve, So those are the kind of tricks that I've had to teach some of my volunteers.
Well, when people watch these stories now, and they might be moved to contribute, how would they go about getting involved in being able to contribute? How does that work?
Yeah. The first question that I usually ask is like, what do you love doing? Because it also has to come from inside. It's like, what do you know, what you do? Like, someone may like teaching, someone may be a musician. So those are the kind of things if they want to volunteer. That right now, I would love to have someone redo my website, because it's very old, very old. Those are the kind of things that some other things that we need to get the word out. Since we don't have right now, let's say if whatever town, we ever find there are people in need everywhere. Like right now, I just prefer here. I just had some conversation with someone at university. Let's figure out there's an event taking place. Let's make sure that the place is accessible. Let's make sure. Let's have a conversation. What's going on in your community? If there's like, for example, I did a lot on gardening. Let's make sure that the community gardens are accessible. That the flowers. So those are kind of conversations that I'm now having. So how can we make our parks accessible? Because we're limited in so many different ways for transportation or going here and there. So let's look at in our immediate community, what can we do to make sure that spaces are accessible, that events are made accessible for all, whether it's regarding disability, aging, child, whatever it is. There's need for volunteers everywhere. And then for my organization, I would say you can always contact me. Let's create. I'm always about creating. Let's figure it out. Let's see what is it that if you're going, like I have some friends right now who are in Spain. They went to Spain. Let's figure out how you can help someone in Spain. Let me make some contacts there. I know people in Spain. So maybe, you can take something for them there or so an organization if you're traveling or visiting, make sure that, there's a hospital, there's a rehab facility, there's a senior center that could use something. Take a chair, take, something. Let's create it. We can create on the spot because there's need everywhere.
There surely are. So again, it's Causes for Change.
Yes, causesforchange.org would be the website. And like I said, you can donate through that, or you can just through, I always say Zelle, through if it does your bank. That's sometimes easy. And I promise you, I'll let you know how every dollar was spent, because that's what I do. You will know how your dollar was spent, how it was spent, and make sure if I need receipts or have a letter from whether it was sent here or there, it will be done. Because that's how we operate. Every dollar that you donate will go to someone that needs it, some project or some program.
I have one last question I want to ask her.
Sure.
How do you handle seeing and being a part of this terribly heart-wrenching situations with these children? I mean, how do you handle that personally?
Well, I just remember, I think it's putting more strength, remembering how I was, and I didn't want to be seen in a certain way. And knowing that at the time that I was nonverbal, I was paralyzed, and but there was still something inside me. And also just seeing the faces of my parents. And I guess that gives me the strength, because I don't want any parent to feel as badly as they did for their child, in this case for me. And for me, watching them feeling like I wanting to do more. And so I want to give hope to the child, to every child that comes across, and that they can do it and not give up. And it's just all about love, just loving wherever you are, whatever space you're at. And for me, it's just the children that I saw with that cleft lip, I remember being brought to me and being put in my lap, and others would be seeing a child that looks like a monster. For me, it was like I saw those beautiful eyes, and I saw the hope for this child. I saw the future for this child. What could I do for this child that would not look so monstrous? And the parent loved this child, and I know they want better for the child, so the child would have a better future, for their child not to be seen in that way, but see the child like they see their child. So the same thing, my parents didn't want people in the community to see me as a child, as a vegetable with no hope, that was more like a burden to the family. No, I don't want any child to be a burden to anyone, to their family or to society or anyone. There's no burden here.
Well, thank you.
It's like I said, like my sets with causes, it says starts with one. So it starts with one child, and if we could all make a difference for that one child, whether it's with $1, 1 penny, or whatever it may be, it starts with one. It starts with me.
Wonderful.
Well, thank you so much, Zully.
Thank you,
very
Chris.
inspiring, and we wish you the very best in your journey.
Well, I appreciate you both so much. Thank you. Thank you for your beautiful life.
Your wings.
Thank you. Wow, that's great. Thank you so much. I'm so happy to have met you both. It's really wonderful. I make sure every time I see that movie now, and of course, hope to see you again everywhere. So every time I see an angel, I will think of you.
Oh, thank you.
And we will think of you.
Very thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Do you know someone who is earning their wings? Someone practicing kindness and service to others? Perhaps an organization or initiative helping make the world we live in a kinder, sweeter place.
Or maybe you've witnessed the miraculous, the divine, the magnificent in some way in your life, and you'd like to share it with others. Go to zuzunetwork.com/tellmystory and let us know more.
You may end up being featured on an upcoming episode of Zuzu All Grown Up. That's zuzunetwork.com/tellmystory. Now here's Seth Kennedy with today's parting thoughts.
Thank you, Karolyn and Chris. A truly inspirational interview. We'll be back to hear your thoughts about the interview in a few moments. If you'd like to learn more about Zully and the inspirational message, It Takes Just One, you can check out www.causesforchange.org. That's www.causesforchange.org. We'll be right back with Karolyn and Chris after a short break.
So, what is your opinion of marginalized communities?
She's working in Chicago with her organization, Causes for Change. It's unfortunate, but there is still a lot of segregation. There are people that are being discriminated against because of their ethnicity or background. It's a shame that, when you think that we've come so far, but then, you look around and we really haven't made a lot of difference. It's inspiring to see how some community members have been able to, start these grassroots organizations. They've been able to, be connected in legislation and are starting to get a voice. We want to support these communities and these folks that are trying to make a change. It's good for not only for ourselves, but for everybody. It allows us to, who doesn't want to have the world a better place? And I think that there's room for everyone at the table. We don't have to just, marginalize or discriminate to make sure that we get enough of the pie, that's not like a power grab. But yeah, I think that she's inspiring.
Seth Kennedy here again with some parting words. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. These are the words our ancestors clung to, and this country of ours is the one they dreamed of from distant shores. In almost each and every case, we, as Americans, share this common yearning of our forefathers in common. Few of us have American blood. What an ironic twist of fate that so many of us, in our turn, see it fit to deny others these same dreams. We mock the immigrant for struggling as they learn English or for dressing differently than our current fashion trends. In short, simply for being other. Love the stranger, for you were strangers. Our history seems to mean so little to so many, and we let our pride and arrogance drown out the voices of those before us, the voices of those whom, without, we would not be in this country to begin with. Would we be the ones that mocked them in their day, or the ones doing the mocking? I shudder to think. Let us once again make this country of ours the shining light on the hill, the beacon of hope to all who seek something, somewhere better, somewhere different, and remember that the immigrant is none other than ourselves.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Zuzu All Grown Up.
We hope you've been inspired to live your most wonderful life now and to help those around you do the same.
Remember, no matter what you're going through, no matter who you are, there are people who care about you, and your life makes a difference.
It is a wonderful life.
Check out ZuzuNetwork.com for more on today's and other episodes, including transcripts and merchandise you won't want to be without.
New episodes are coming soon.
For transcripts of today's broadcast, go to ZuzuNetwork.com/transcripts. Zuzu All Grown Up with your hosts Karolyn Grimes and Dr. Brunell.
Announcer and guide Seth Kennedy.
Executive producer Kevin R. Stillmock.
Coordinating producer Holly Ann Way.
Technical producer Stella Joelle.
A Wonderful Land production.
In collaboration with Radio Wonderful.